Arrival on Xenox. The vast emptiness of space shattered as the escape pod hurtled through the atmosphere of Xenox. Inside, Captain Aria Chen gripped the controls, her knuckles white with tension. Alarms blared, red lights flashed, and the pod shuddered violently as it plummeted towards the alien world below. Come on, Aria muttered through gritted teeth, fighting to maintain control of the rapidly descending craft. The surface of Xenox loomed closer, a patchwork of purple vegetation and shimmering silver lakes. With a final desperate maneuver, Aria managed to level out the pod just enough to avoid a catastrophic impact. The landing was far from smooth. The pod skidded across the alien landscape, leaving a trail of scorched earth in its wake. When it finally came to a stop, nestled in a grove of twisted violet trees, an eerie silence fell over the scene. For several long moments, Aria remained motionless, her eyes closed, her breathing ragged. Slowly, she opened her eyes and took stock of her situation. The pod systems were fried, but the hull had held. She was alive, at least for now. With trembling hands, Aria unstrapped herself from the pilot's seat and stumbled towards the emergency supplies. As she gathered what she could salvage, her mind raced with questions. How far off course had she been thrown? Would the distress beacon work on this unknown world? And most pressingly, what kind of environment awaited her outside? Taking a deep breath, Aria donned her exosuit and activated the atmospheric analysis system. To her surprise, the readout showed breathable air, albeit with a slightly higher oxygen content than Earth normal. Still, she kept her helmet on as she prepared to open the pod's hatch. The door hissed open, and Aria stepped out onto the alien soil of Xenox. The gravity was a touch lighter than she was used to, giving her movements a slight bounce. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents, sweet and pungent at the same time. As Aria surveyed her surroundings, movement caught her eye. Something was approaching through the violet foliage. Her hand instinctively went to her sidearm, but she hesitated. First contact situations were delicate, and she didn't want to start off on the wrong foot. From the underbrush emerged a group of humanoid figures. Aria's breath caught in her throat. They were remarkably similar to humans in overall shape, but their skin had a faint lavender tint. And their eyes glowed with an otherworldly violet light. The aliens approached cautiously, their expressions a mix of fear and curiosity. Aria slowly raised her hands, palms out, in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "Hello," she said, knowing they wouldn't understand but hoping her tone would convey her intentions. "I come in peace." One of the aliens, seemingly bolder than the rest, stepped forward. It placed a hand on its chest and made a sound that Aria interpreted as a name. "Zintha," it said, then gestured towards Aria. Aria mimicked the gesture, placing her hand on her chest. "Aria," she said clearly. The alien, Zintha, repeated the name, its pronunciation slightly off but recognizable. Then, to Aria's surprise, Zintha reached out and gently touched her arm. The alien's eyes widened, and it quickly withdrew its hand, chattering excitedly to its companions. As Aria watched the aliens converse, she noticed something odd. Some of them appeared to be aging before her eyes. Wrinkles formed, hair grayed, and postures stooped. It was as if time was passing at an accelerated rate for these beings. Realization dawned on Aria. These aliens lived on a completely different timescale than humans. What might be days or weeks for them could be mere hours for her. The implications were staggering. Zintha turned back to Aria and made a beckoning gesture. The group of aliens seemed to have come to a decision. They'd wanted her to follow them. Aria hesitated for a moment. Her training told her to stay with the pod, to wait for rescue. But the pod was beyond repair, and she had no idea how long it would take for anyone to find her, if they ever did. These aliens were her best chance at survival on this strange world. Making up her mind, Aria gathered what supplies she could carry and nodded to Zintha. As they set off through the alien forest, Aria's mind whirled with possibilities. She was about to become immersed in a culture that lived and died in the blink of an eye. How would they perceive her, seemingly ageless in comparison? What could she learn from them? And what impact would her presence have on their society? The group emerged from the forest into a clearing, and Aria's jaw dropped. Before her stood a village unlike anything she had ever seen. Structures of living wood and shimmering stone rose organically from the ground. Aliens of all ages bustled about, their movements quick and purposeful. As they entered the village, all activity ceased. Every glowing violet eye turned to stare at the newcomer. Aria felt the weight of their gazes, a mix of fear, wonder, and hope. In that moment, she knew her life had changed forever. She was no longer just Captain Aria Chen of Earth. On this world of fleeting lives, she had become something else entirely. The Timeless One had arrived on Xenox, and nothing would ever be the same. The rise of the immortal. Days turned to weeks, and weeks to months, but for the Xenoxians, generations passed in the blink of an eye. Aria watched in fascination and horror as the alien she had first met upon her arrival grew old and passed away, replaced by their children and grandchildren. Yet she remained unchanged, a constant in their ever-shifting world. Aria's first priority had been to learn the Xenoxian language. With her translator damaged beyond repair in the crash, she had to rely on her wits and the patience of her alien hosts. Zintha, the alien who had first greeted her, became her primary teacher and guide. "Aria," Zintha said one day, its voice weak with age, "you are a miracle to us, a being who does not wither and die as we do. Tell me, what is the secret of your longevity?" Aria struggled to explain the concept of different planetary rotation speeds and how it affected the perception of time. "On my world," she said carefully, choosing her words in the still unfamiliar Xenoxian tongue, "we live many, many cycles of your sun. It is not that we are immortal, but that our time moves differently than yours." Zintha's violet eyes widened in wonder. "Then you have seen much, and will see much more. You must share your knowledge with us, Aria. Help us to grow and learn as your people have." And so began Aria's role as teacher and guide to the Xenoxians. She started with basic concepts, improved agriculture techniques, simple machines to make their daily lives easier, and fundamental scientific principles. The Xenoxians proved to be quick learners, their short lifespans driving them to absorb knowledge at an astonishing rate. As the village grew and prospered under Aria's guidance, word spread to other settlements. Visitors began to arrive, eager to see the Ageless One for themselves and learn from her wisdom. Aria found herself at the center of a rapidly expanding sphere of influence. But with influence came responsibility, and Aria often found herself grappling with the ethical implications of her actions. How much should she interfere with the natural development of Xenoxian society? What technologies were safe to introduce, and which might cause more harm than good? One day, as Aria was demonstrating the principles of lever and pulley systems to a group of young Xenoxians, an elder approached her. His name was Voxnu, and he was one of the few who remembered the day of her arrival. "Aria," Voxnu said, his voice quavering with age, "I have watched you guide our people for many generations. You have brought us great advancements, but I fear we are losing touch with our old ways, our connection to the land, to the cycles of life and death that define us." Aria considered his words carefully. "I understand your concern, Voxnu. It was never my intention to replace your culture, only to enhance it. Perhaps we can find a way to blend the old and the new, to honor your traditions while embracing progress." This conversation sparked a new approach in Aria's teachings. She began to incorporate Xenoxian mythology and cultural practices into her lessons, showing how scientific principles often aligned with their ancient wisdom. This approach not only made the new concepts more accessible to the Xenoxians, but also helped to preserve their unique cultural identity. As Aria's influence grew, so did the challenges she faced. Disputes between villages became more frequent as some embraced her teachings more readily than others. Aria found herself thrust into the role of mediator. trying to balance the needs and desires of different factions within Xenoxian society. One particularly contentious issue arose when Area introduced the concept of writing. The Xenoxians had always relied on oral tradition to pass down knowledge, their short lifespans necessitating a rapid transfer of information between generations. The idea of preserving thoughts and ideas beyond a single lifetime was revolutionary, and to some, deeply unsettling. "You seek to make us like you," accused Melzi, a leader from a neighboring village. "To stretch our influence beyond our natural span. This is not our way." Area stood her ground. "Writing is a tool, nothing more. It can preserve your stories, your wisdom, for future generations. It doesn't change who you are. It amplifies what you already have." The debate raged for what seemed like months to Area, but was mere days in Xenoxian time. In the end, a compromise was reached. Writing would be introduced, but alongside it, the art of memory and oral storytelling would be elevated to new heights, ensuring that the Xenoxian tradition of living in the moment was not lost. As Area watched the Xenoxians take their first steps into literacy, she felt a profound sense of pride and accomplishment. But with it came a gnawing sense of loneliness. She had now lived among the Xenoxians for the equivalent of several of their lifetimes. She had seen friends grow old and die, had taught their children and grandchildren. And yet, she remained unchanged, an outsider despite her central role in their society. Late one night, as Area sat alone in the dwelling the Xenoxians had built for her, she found herself talking to the stars. "Is anyone out there looking for me?" she whispered. "Do they even know I'm alive?" As if in answer, a streak of light crossed the alien sky, a shooting star, or perhaps a distant ship. Area's heart leaped at the sight, but she quickly tamped down her excitement. False hope would only make her situation more difficult. Instead, she turned her thoughts to the future. The Xenoxians were advancing rapidly under her guidance. Soon, they would be ready for more complex technologies, medicine to extend their short lives, energy systems to power new inventions, perhaps even the basics of spaceflight. The possibilities were both exhilarating and terrifying. As a new day dawned on Xenox, Area steeled herself for the challenges ahead. She may be stranded on this alien world, but she had found a purpose here. She would continue to guide the Xenoxians, to help them grow and thrive. And perhaps in doing so, she would discover new facets of her own humanity. Little did Area know that her greatest challenge, and the true test of her impact on Xenoxian society, was yet to come. As she stepped out to greet another day, the wheels of fate were already in motion, setting the stage for a conflict that would shape the destiny of two species. Challenges of eternity. As the cycles of Xenox's twin suns continued their endless dance, Area found herself grappling with the weight of her own seeming immortality. The Xenoxian society had flourished under her guidance, advancing at a pace that both thrilled and terrified her. Yet with each passing generation, the burden of her influence grew heavier. One crisp morning, as Area stood atop the highest spire in the now sprawling city that had once been a humble village, she felt a familiar pang of loss. Zindha, her first friend on this alien world, had long since passed away. So too had Voxnu, Melzi, and countless others she had come to know and love. The faces below were new, yet hauntingly familiar, descendants of those she had first met, carrying echoes of their ancestors in their glowing violet eyes. Area. A young Xenoxian named Kelvi came bounding up the stairs, nearly out of breath. "The Council requests your presence. There's been a breakthrough in the longevity research." Area's heart skipped a beat. The longevity project had been one of the most controversial initiatives she had introduced. Many Xenoxians embraced the idea of extending their brief lives, while others saw it as a violation of their natural cycle. The debate had raged for generations, with Area caught in the middle. As she made her way to the council chambers, Area reflected on the ethical dilemmas that had plagued her over the years. Was it right to fundamentally alter the Xenoxian lifespan? What unforeseen consequences might arise from such a dramatic change? The council chamber was abuzz with excitement when Arya entered. Lead scientist Drumo, a brilliant mind who had devoted his entire short life to the longevity project, stood at the center of the room, practically vibrating with enthusiasm. Arya, esteemed council members, Drumo began, his voice quivering with excitement. We've done it. Our latest treatment has successfully extended the lifespan of our test subjects by a factor of 10. 10. Can you imagine? A Xenoxian could now live for 5 full cycles of the twin suns. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, some cheering, others shouting in protest. Arya raised her hand, and a hush fell over the room. All eyes turned to her, waiting for the wisdom of the Timeless One. This is indeed a momentous achievement, Arya said carefully, weighing each word. But we must consider the implications. How will this affect your society, your resources, your very way of life? An elder council member, Fei Lu, stood up. Arya, you have guided us for countless generations. You have seen the rise and fall of our greatest minds, lost to the cruel brevity of our existence. How can you question this miracle? Arya sighed, feeling the weight of centuries on her shoulders. Because I have seen the consequences of extended life. Fei Lu, on my world, where we naturally live much longer, we face challenges you cannot imagine. Overpopulation, resource depletion, the stagnation of ideas when the old do not make way for the new. The room fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. Arya continued, this discovery is neither good nor bad in itself. It is a tool, like any other. The question is, how will you use it? Will you offer it to all, or only a select few? How will you balance the wisdom of age with the innovation of youth? The debate raged for days, a blink of an eye for Arya, but a significant portion of a Xenoxian's life. In the end, a compromise was reached. The longevity treatment would be made available, but with strict regulations. Only a small percentage of the population would receive it at any given time, chosen based on their potential contributions to society. As Arya left the council chambers, she felt a mix of pride and trepidation. The Xenoxians had handled the dilemma with wisdom beyond their years, but she knew this was only the beginning of the challenges they would face. Months passed, and the effects of the longevity treatment began to ripple through Xenoxian society. While many celebrated the extended lives of their greatest minds, others grew resentful of the perceived inequality. Arya found herself mediating more disputes than ever before, trying to maintain the delicate balance she had helped create. One evening, as Arya was recording the day's events in her journal, a habit she had maintained since her arrival on Xenox, she heard a commotion outside. A group of young Xenoxians had gathered, their faces painted with bioluminescent pigments that glowed angrily in the twilight. Down with the Timeless One, they chanted. Return to the natural way. Arya's heart sank. She had known this day might come, but it didn't make it any easier to face. She stepped outside to confront the protesters, her presence immediately silencing the crowd. I hear your concerns, Arya said, her voice carrying across the square. You believe I've led your people astray, away from your natural cycles. But consider this, is not the pursuit of knowledge and growth also natural? Your ancestors embraced change, and it allowed you to thrive. Why stop now? A young Xenoxian stepped forward, his eyes blazing with defiance. Because we're losing ourselves, he cried. We're becoming more like you and less like us. Our elders no longer pass on, hoarding knowledge and power. The cycle is broken. Arya nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words. Change is never easy, she said softly, but it is inevitable. The question is not whether to change, but how to change while holding on to what makes you uniquely Xenoxian. As the crowd murmured among themselves, Arya felt a sudden wave of exhaustion wash over her. For the first time since her arrival on this alien world, she felt every one of her years. She had guided the Xenoxians for so long, but perhaps it was time for them to find their own path. I am not your ruler. Arya continued, her voice growing stronger. I am not your god. I am simply a traveler who has been fortunate enough to share in your journey. The choices you face now are yours to make. I can offer advice, but the future of Xenox belongs to you. The crowd fell silent, the weight of her words settling over them like a blanket. Slowly, the young Xenoxian who had challenged her stepped forward again. Then teach us, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Not how to be like you, but how to face these challenges as Xenoxians. Arya smiled, feeling a glimmer of hope. That, she said, is a lesson we can learn together. As the crowd dispersed, Arya gazed up at the alien sky, wondering not for the first time if she would ever see Earth again. But as she looked back at the city she had helped build, at the people she had guided for so long, she realized that Xenox had become more than just a temporary home. It was a part of her now, for better or worse. Little did Arya know that far above, beyond the reach of Xenoxian telescopes, events were unfolding that would soon force her to confront the ultimate challenge, one that would test not only her wisdom and leadership, but the very future of both her adopted home and her species of origin. As the twin suns set on another day on Xenox, Arya steeled herself for whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to face them not as an outsider, but as a true part of this ever-evolving alien world. The galactic threat. The first sign of trouble came in the form of an anomaly in the night sky. Arya was in the observatory, a magnificent structure that had been built under her guidance, teaching a group of young Xenoxian astronomers. As they scanned the heavens, one of the students, Lursa, let out a gasp. Arya, look. That star. It's moving. Arya rushed to the telescope, her heart pounding. What she saw sent a chill down her spine. It wasn't a star at all, but a spacecraft, and it was headed directly for Xenox. For days, Arya and the Xenoxian scientists worked tirelessly to track the approaching vessel. As it drew nearer, more details became clear. It was massive, easily dwarfing any ship in Earth's fleet. And it wasn't alone. Behind it, barely visible even with their most powerful telescopes, was an armada. Arya knew she had to act fast. She called an emergency meeting of the council, her mind racing with possibilities. Could these be rescuers from Earth, finally tracking her down after all these years? Or was this something far more sinister? As the council gathered, Arya stood before them, her face grave. My friends, she began, we face a situation unlike any in your history. An alien fleet approaches Xenox. Their intentions are unknown, but we must be prepared for any possibility. The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices. Fear, excitement, and confusion mingled in the air. Drumo, now a respected elder thanks to the longevity treatments, raised his hand for silence. Arya, he said, his voice steady despite the tension in the room, you've prepared us for this moment, whether we knew it or not. Every advancement, every technology you've helped us develop, they've all led to this. We're ready to face whatever comes. Arya nodded, a surge of pride washing over her. The Xenoxians had indeed come far. But would it be enough? As the days passed and the alien fleet drew nearer, Arya threw herself into preparations. Defense systems were hastily constructed, using technology she had introduced over the years. The Xenoxians, with their quick minds and shorter lifespans, innovated at an astonishing pace, improving on her designs in ways she hadn't thought possible. Finally, the day of first contact arrived. The lead ship of the alien fleet entered Xenox's atmosphere, its massive form casting a shadow over the capital city. Arya stood at the forefront of a delegation of Xenoxian leaders, her heart pounding as the ship's landing ramp descended. The beings that emerged were unlike anything Arya had ever seen. Tall, insectoid creatures with iridescent exoskeletons and compound eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Their mandibles clicked as they surveyed the welcoming party. To Arya's shock, the lead alien spoke, in perfect English. Greetings, humans, and others, it said, its voice a strange, harmonious buzz. We are the Zarkesh Collective. We have come to claim this world and its resources for our ever-expanding empire. Aria's blood ran cold. These weren't rescuers or peaceful explorers. They were conquerors. And they knew about humans, which meant Earth was likely already in their sights. Stepping forward, Aria addressed the alien leader. I am Aria Chen, representative of Earth and friend to the Xenoxian people. This world is not yours to claim. We reject your authority and demand that you leave in peace. The Zarkesh leader's compound eyes seemed to focus solely on Aria. Ah, the lost explorer. Your disappearance caused quite a stir in your home system. How fortunate for us to find you here, with a pre-prepared colony ripe for the taking. Aria's mind raced. Earth knew about her disappearance. Had they been looking for her all this time? She pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the immediate threat. This is no colony, she said firmly. Xenox is an independent world with its own rich culture and advanced technology. We will defend it with everything we have. The Zarkesh leader made a sound that might have been laughter. Brave words, little human, but you have no concept of the power we wield. We will give you one planetary rotation to surrender. After that, we will take what we want by force. As the aliens retreated to their ship, Aria turned to the Xenoxian leaders. Their faces were a mix of fear and determination. We stand with you, Aria, said Feilu, her violet eyes blazing with resolve. Whatever comes, we face it together. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Aria coordinated with the Xenoxian military, such as it was, to prepare their defenses. She shared everything she knew about space combat, hoping it would be enough to give them an edge. As the deadline approached, Aria found herself atop the highest spire of the city once again. The Zarkesh fleet loomed in the sky, a constant reminder of the threat they faced. But as she looked down at the city below, at the world she had helped shape, she felt a fierce determination take hold. This was her home now. These were her people, and she would fight with every ounce of her being to protect them. The attack, when it came, was devastating. Energy weapons rained down from the sky, targeting key infrastructure that Aria and the Xenoxians had worked so hard to build. But the Xenoxians were not defenseless. Shield technology, reverse-engineered from Aria's crashed pod and improved upon over generations, flickered to life over major population centers. Aria found herself in the thick of the battle, coordinating defense efforts and providing tactical advice. The Xenoxians fought with a ferociousness that surprised even her, their quick minds and shorter lifespans allowing them to adapt to the changing battlefield with astonishing speed. As the battle raged on, Aria made a startling discovery. The Zarkesh, for all their advanced technology, had a critical weakness. Their hive mind-like collective consciousness, while powerful, made them vulnerable to coordinated attacks. If they could disrupt the lead ship's communications, the entire fleet would be thrown into disarray. With this knowledge, Aria and a team of the brightest Xenoxian minds devised a daring plan. Using a combination of Xenoxian biotechnology and principles of Earth's electronic warfare, they created a device that could potentially overload the Zarkesh's neural network. The plan was risky. To deploy the device, someone would need to infiltrate the Zarkesh mothership. Aria knew it had to be her. She alone had the knowledge of both Earth and Xenoxian technology needed to ensure the device's success. As she prepared for the mission, Aria was struck by the gravity of the moment. This could be her last act on Xenox, the culmination of everything she had worked for over the years. If she succeeded, she would save not only her adopted home, but potentially Earth as well. If she failed, pushing the thought aside, Aria addressed the Xenoxian leaders one last time. Whatever happens, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. Remember this. You are capable of incredible things. The strength of Xenox lies not in technology or in lifespans, but in your spirit, your adaptability, and your unwavering determination. It has been the honor of my life to be a part of your world. As Arya boarded the stealth ship that would take her to the Zarkesh mothership, she cast one last look at the world she had come to call home. The twin suns of Xenox were rising, painting the sky in hues of purple and gold. It was beautiful, a sight she had seen countless times, but never tired of. With a deep breath, Arya steeled herself for the task ahead. The fate of two worlds rested on her shoulders. As the ship lifted off, carrying her towards an uncertain destiny, one thought echoed in her mind. For Earth, for Xenox, for the future. The final battle for the fate of both her old home and her new one was about to begin. Legacy of the Timeless One. The Zarkesh mothership loomed before Arya, a behemoth of gleaming metal and pulsing energy. Her small stealth craft, a marvel of combined human intuition and Xenoxian ingenuity, slipped through the enemy's defenses undetected. As she maneuvered towards a maintenance hatch, Arya's mind raced with the enormity of what she was about to attempt. Inside the alien vessel, Arya moved swiftly and silently. Years of studying Xenoxian biology had honed her already keen senses, allowing her to navigate the unfamiliar environment with surprising ease. The device she carried, a fusion of Earth's electronic warfare principles and Xenoxian biotechnology, hummed softly against her hip. As she neared the ship's central nervous system, alarms suddenly blared. She'd been detected. Gritting her teeth, Arya broke into a run. There was no turning back now. Zarkesh drones converged on her position, their insectoid forms skittering across walls and ceilings. Arya dodged energy blasts, her movements guided by countless hours of training with the agile Xenoxians. She was no longer just Captain Arya Chen of Earth, nor was she simply the Timeless One of Xenox. She was both, and more, a bridge between worlds, fighting for the future of both. With a final burst of speed, Arya reached the central chamber. The Zarkesh Queen, a massive creature pulsing with bioluminescent patterns, turned its compound eyes towards her. Arya felt the weight of millennia in that gaze. "You fight for a lost cause, human." The Queen's voice resonated in Arya's mind. "Your Earth is already ours. This world will soon follow." Arya's heart clenched at the mention of Earth, but she pushed the pain aside. "You're wrong," she said, her voice steady. "Earth isn't yours. And neither is Xenox. You underestimate us both." With that, Arya activated the device. A wave of energy pulsed outward, interfacing with the Zarkesh's neural network. The Queen screeched, a sound that shook Arya to her core. Throughout the ship, drones fell, their connection to the hive mind severed. But the victory was short-lived. As the Queen writhed in agony, a surge of psychic energy slammed into Arya. Images flooded her mind. Earth under siege, human cities in ruins, the Zarkesh's unstoppable advance across the galaxy. Arya fell to her knees, overwhelmed by the onslaught. But as quickly as it had come, the vision shifted. She saw Xenox, its people standing strong, their unique blend of rapid adaptation and technological advancement allowing them to push back against the invasion. And there, leading the charge, were ships bearing the insignia of Earth. With a gasp, Arya understood. The Zarkesh had lied. Earth wasn't defeated. It was fighting back. And now, thanks to the distress signal from her long-lost pod, they had found her. Found Xenox. Humanity and Xenoxians, united against a common foe. Drawing on every ounce of strength left in her body, Arya pushed back against the Queen's psychic attack. She focused on everything she had learned, everything she had experienced in her time on Xenox. The rapid passage of generations, the beauty of lives lived in fast forward, the incredible adaptability and resilience of her adopted people. The Queen's assault faltered, its compound eyes widening in shock. What are you?" it hissed. Arya stood, her resolve unshakable. "I am human," she said. "I am Xenoxian. I am the bridge between worlds, and you will not destroy either of my homes." With a final surge of energy, Arya unleashed the full power of the device. The Queen's screech reached a fever pitch, then abruptly cut off. Throughout the ship, throughout the entire Zarkesh fleet, systems went dark. In the ensuing chaos, Aria barely remembered her escape from the mothership. Her next clear memory was of standing on the surface of Xenox, watching as the combined forces of Earth and Xenox drove back the remaining Zarkesh ships. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The arrival of the Earth fleet brought with it a reunion Aria had long thought impossible. Tears flowed freely as she embraced her fellow humans for the first time in what for her had been centuries. But even as she rejoiced in this connection to her original home, Aria felt the pull of Xenox. This world, these people, had become as much a part of her as Earth ever was. As humans and Xenoxians worked side by side to rebuild and strengthen their defenses against any future threats, Aria found herself in a unique position to bridge the gap between the two species. Months passed, and the time came for the Earth fleet to return home. Aria stood before the assembled leaders of both worlds, her heart heavy with the weight of the choice before her. "Captain Chen," the Earth Admiral said, "it's time to come home. Your knowledge, your experiences here, they could revolutionize our understanding of the galaxy." Aria nodded, acknowledging the truth in his words. But then she turned to the Xenoxian Council, to the faces of those whose ancestors she had watched grow and thrive over countless generations. "And what of my home here?" she asked softly. "What of the people who took in a strange visitor from the stars and made her one of their own?" Fadlu, now one of the eldest on the council, stepped forward. "Aria," she said, her violet eyes shimmering with emotion, "you will always have a home on Xenox. But perhaps your true destiny lies in being a bridge between our worlds. You've united us in the face of a common enemy. Now, unite us in peace." Aria felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She turned back to the Earth Admiral, a smile playing on her lips. "Admiral," she said, "I propose a compromise. Let us establish an official ambassadorship between Earth and Xenox, and let me be the first to serve in that capacity." The agreement was swift and enthusiastic from both sides. In the years that followed, Aria split her time between Earth and Xenox, facilitating the exchange of knowledge, culture, and technology between the two worlds. The unique perspectives of the short-lived, fast-adapting Xenoxians, combined with humanity's long-term planning and endurance, proved to be a formidable partnership. Together, they made advancements that neither species could have achieved alone. Xenoxian biotechnology revolutionized human medicine, while Earth's space exploration techniques allowed Xenox to reach for the stars. The threat of the Zarkesh, while ever present, was held at bay by their combined strength. As Aria watched generation after generation of Xenoxians grow and pass on, as she saw humanity expand its understanding of the universe, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had become more than just the Timeless One or Captain Chen. She was a living bridge between worlds, a testament to the power of cultural exchange and mutual understanding. On her last day as ambassador, before retiring to live out her remaining years on Xenox, Aria stood once again atop the highest spire of the Xenoxian capital. The city below had grown beyond her wildest dreams, a harmonious blend of Xenoxian and human architecture reaching towards the sky. As the twin suns set, painting the sky in familiar hues of purple and gold, Aria reflected on her incredible journey. From a lost explorer to a revered leader, from an outsider to a bridge between worlds, she had lived a life beyond imagination. A soft voice behind her broke her reverie. "Aria, it's time for the ceremony." She turned to see Lursa, the young astronomer who had first spotted the Zarkesh fleet, now a respected scientist in her own right. Aria smiled, seeing in Lursa's eyes the same curiosity and wonder that had driven her own explorations so long ago. "Indeed it is," Aria replied, taking one last look at the sunset. "A new chapter begins." As they descended the spire together, Aria's heart swelled with pride and hope. The legacy she would leave behind was not one of technology or knowledge alone, but of unity, of bridging divides, of finding common ground across the stars. In the end, Arya realized that was the true power of humanity, not its longevity or its technology, but its capacity to adapt, to understand, to forge connections even in the most unlikely of places. And as long as that spirit lived on, in humans and Xenoxians alike, the future of both their worlds was bright indeed. The Timeless One's tale was ending, but the story of Earth and Xenox, of humanity's place in the vast tapestry of the cosmos, was only just beginning.